And are we able to locate George?
Yeah, I'm just trying once more.
Okay. Guys, is this okay?
Yes, Adrian, that looks fine. It's fine.
Oh, good. All right. Thanks. So he managed to get the virtual background working. See?
I know. That's the jewel chunky background, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
That's fine. People can look at my aircon.
Yeah, he gets water flowing down. You have air flowing down. So, okay.
Exactly. As long as there's cooling effect.
There you go. We'll just take another minute and then we'll get started. I think George had a conflict till 5, so he's probably going to join right at 5. So the folks who joined right now, just give us another minute or so. We should be starting very, very shortly. We have most of our panelists on, and I'll just start with the kickoff very quickly. Yeah. Okay, I think Tanya, if you're okay, let's get started. Yeah.
Yep.
So wonderful, awesome. So I think we've started to have some good folks coming in, and I think more should be coming in shortly. Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nitin. I'm the CFO and the Director Asia for Smart Interns. On the team from the Smart Interns team, we have Tanya, we have Guru, and we have other members joining us from the India team. Also on the call today, we have our wonderful speakers. We have Soumya Raj from Microsoft. We have Adrian Tan. We have Sachin. And I guess, do we have, we're missing George right now. Okay, so George should be joining us very, very soon. Right. So the topic that we have today is actually something that we in Smart Interns are very passionate about. Um, it's about finding opportunities. Really, it's about finding your space, finding opportunities within a very, very growing space. Something that the world is going towards on technology, and the technology space is growing. The talent requirement in that space is growing, and um, companies are looking for people. People are looking for jobs, but there is still a gap. And I think that is the gap that we are trying to explore here in the call today. Why do new aspirants struggle? How do they get experienced? How do they actually find their space? And not only the new students, but also people who've been in the industry who have wonderful years of experience, who bring in a lot of domain expertise. How do we get them to find their right space within the industry, within the technology space? Right, and which is why I think it's a problem that flummoxes us all, and currently it's something that we need to bring in inputs from the academia side, from the HR side, from the company and the corporate side, and definitely from a student angle. What can students do differently? And that is what we are trying to explore here. Interestingly, it seems that almost 80% of the interns today, and the situation has actually gotten significantly worse because of COVID. So they are not able to find internships. They are not, they are not able to be get into the workforce at this point of time. And even the folks who are able to get internships and they're able to get admitted, um, the employers always find that they have to retrain them. They have to significantly put additional effort into their skilling and into getting them job ready. So that is the gap that we are, trying to address here today. And for us right now, we have Soumya. Soumya heads our, the global talent acquisition for Microsoft. She is a very wonderful advocate for the on the diversity and inclusion agenda for getting more women and other folks into the tech space. We have Sachin, who is passionate about getting with IT Academy on VMware, getting as many students as possible engaged and helping them adopt to new technologies. We have Adrian, who is the wonderful creator of the HR Tech Map here in Singapore. He's an influencer, he's a thought leader, and he is bringing a lot of new ideas and helping people understand how to understand this evolving landscape, right? So with that, let's just jump right in, and I'm opening up the floor right now for our speakers. If you'd like to maybe just take a minute or so to quickly introduce yourself, your thoughts about this topic on an overall basis, and then we can actually get into some specific questions that we have for you. So Soumya, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Nitin. And thank you for organizing this. Indeed, a great opportunity to come together and discuss this. And these are unprecedented times, right? So it definitely calls for a more collaborated approach and conversation in terms of how do we bridge this gap and be intentional around this, right? Especially for the new grads or the interns and the students who are willing getting to join the workforce. Quick brief about myself. So as you mentioned in your introduction, I lead talent acquisition for Microsoft, technical talent acquisition, and my main remit is APAC region. I've been in Singapore for about 5 years now, originally from Bangalore, and I was fortunate to start my HR career with good leading technology brands. And prior to joining Microsoft, I was in Bangalore, worked with Google and VMware. So love the technology agility these organizations are driving, and what a better time than now to be a part of a Microsoft organization, which is all about empowering people digitally and otherwise. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Soumya, for being part of our panel. Sachin, if you'd like to go next. Sachin. Okay, maybe Adrian, you could go next, and maybe Sachin is having a hard time getting off mute.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So again, thank you so much for getting me here today. I'm Adrian. I'm with PeopleStrong. We are an enterprise HR technology platform, and we hail from India and recently opened shop in Singapore, Thailand, as well as looking into Philippines. So my scope in PeopleStrong is all about application, education, as well as marketing, covering very much on the technology side. But having said that, also getting a very clear sense of the kind of situation when it comes to talent acquisition, because end of the day, all this technology are helping to enable whether it's productivity, acquisition, or retention of people, and people will be the talent that we're talking about here. And in today's context, of course, given what is happening right now, the pandemic has essentially created quite a situation for many people to comprehend, for many people to react to, whether they are a graduate, they are seniors, they are seasoned veterans. It is quite a trying times for many people. And on the employer end, it is also quite a mess for them to cater to the working culture right now, given that almost every one of us is working from home. You can see my backdrop. This is not where I am. I'm actually in my balcony right now. And just like everyone else, I'm working from home. So trying to bridge all this together in today's very dynamic landscape is really, really very challenging. And I'll be happy to share more of my thoughts and opinion on this later on.
Super good. Thank you so much for that, Adrian. I believe we have George on the line now. George actually comes to us from the National University of Singapore, and he is the venture development and entrepreneurship lead. George actually comes with a wonderful background of almost a decade in technical, working with tech startups. He's mentored and supported almost 90 startups in his career, and so he brings a wonderful wealth of experience of working both on the startup side as well as on the academia side. So, George, if you're on, if you would like to maybe say a few words.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to the event. Very happy to be here. I think we are in trying times, but the key thing to remember now is as the going gets tough, the tough gets going. So at NUS, we are not letting up. We are still aiming to create between 25 to 40 deep tech startups every year. So even though we are nearing the end of the year, we are still looking to produce the next cohort, about 25 startups in spaces like AI, renewable energy, and IoT, just to name a few. So I think a crisis is always a good time for us to prepare for the future. So we must keep on building ourselves and building for the future. Thank you.
Perfect, George. Thank you so much for that. Sachin, if you're on, I mean, Sachin comes with a, from the IT Academy and VMware.
Uh, Sure, Nathan. Thanks. First of all, uh, my co-panelists, it's a great opportunity to be part of this discussion. And I come from background of evangelization. I've been working with developers and startup ecosystem from past 7 years. And key thing is about innovation and about learning, right? It's the interest you have to learn certain things, and the opportunity you have to learn things, and what are the resources you have, and what is the support you get, right? So those are the few things which we need to understand. If we get that those things right, we are up for new learning. And whatever the kind of technology we talk about, be it cloud, IoT, and latest technologies, be even in terms of blockchain, whatever it is. So it's about your willingness to learn, and then the the opportunity to access those platforms in right way, and if you can get help from someone to learn those things. So that's the way I see it, right? And definitely I've been working in this ecosystem from past 10 years, and this talent shortage has been there, and I don't think we are going to solve it 100%. It is going to remain there. We are going to lessen that gap, lessen that bridge, shortage of talent bridge, in different ways. How do we identify that, so that I can share my thoughts around the same in the further discussion. Yep,
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I think it is definitely the era of lifelong learning.
absolutely.
You learn now and you keep learning and you find ways of staying engaged. Technology is changing very fast. Everything is evolving very fast. So we just have to find our opportunities and our ways of going and continuing to stay. So anyway, with that, let's just dive into the discussion. So we have, I think, everybody introduced. We understand the topic. So let's maybe just try and dissect a little bit the dilemma of the students, right? So, and also the mid-career professionals. So you have two situations. You have a student who is now um, in his year 3, year 4, and he's getting ready to graduate. And if you are lucky, you've managed to find some internships. If you are not, then you are basically struggling and you're really trying to understand, how do I get my first internship? How do I get my first break, right? And similarly, if you are a mid-career professional, you are maybe 30, 35 years old, and you haven't worked in the tech field so far, and you're trying to figure out, everybody is going into tech. I've got to find my way in there. How does somebody basically start to get their way, into the tech zone? So I'm going to, just the way that we're going to work is, I'm just going to throw this question to maybe one of you, and if others have thoughts, please feel free to, chip in and, share your ideas as well. So maybe I'll open this one up to George. George, if you'd like to take this one on, how do students get their first break? And
I'll encourage students to continue to participate in a e-networking session to understand the latest trends in technology. That's the first thing. Second thing, also to participate in uh, hackathons and events where they can get to have their first foot in the door, okay, by participating in a startup, even as an intern. Well, if you have a chance to be a co-founding employee or an early employee, then that's the best thing. But if not, even to participate as an intern, to get some experience that will be useful in the future on your CV, on getting your next job when the economy picks up. So always be in the process of learning and accumulating experience for the next level. That's what I will encourage the students.
perfect. Any of the other members like to add on?
Right. So I second George's opinion, right? It's a lifetime learning process, and you need to keep learning. And we are seeing two different situations here. One is for student, other one is for mid-career. So I'll address the student thing first, right? So from India perspective, we have almost, I think, 7 to 8 lakh students passing out every year, right? In terms of engineering alone. So if you want to get into something specific to industry, my approach would be, see, you need to learn what interests you. So in the process of, let's say it's a IT engineer or computer science engineer, if he is passing out, he needs to identify his interest and start putting his efforts from second year, and start learning the advanced technologies around that. Yes, there are hundreds of new technologies in the market, and you can't be master of all of them. So my suggestion would be to identify the technology you are interested in, and then start working towards that. So working towards, as in, you need to do a project around that, and you need to understand how to build an application using that programming language. How do you do a hackathon? How do you participate hackathon in the specific domain? And that's the best way. And if you can participate in any of the programs like VMware IT Academy, and then again, AWS has its own program for students, and Microsoft has its own program for students again. So there are different organizations coming and helping these students to learn the latest technologies. So if you have to be different from other 7 lakh or 8 lakh students who are passing out from the engineering institution, you need to learn the advanced skills. So how can you do? You need to identify the uh, platform you are interested in, and access to the platform, and then someone can help you. So these are the 3 steps you can get the exposure towards latest technologies. And once you learn, it's just about matter of getting an opportunity and clearing it.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sachin. Soumya?
Yes, and to Sachin's point, definitely casting your net wide is extremely critical, right? And you need to constantly keep asking yourself, how much effort have you put in, right? What is it that sets you different? Because as Sachin mentioned, there are over 7 to 10 lakhs engineering students alone passing out alone from India, let alone the other regions. So what sets you different? What are the initiatives you have taken, right? What have you built? It could be any small tech platform to an app. So basically knowing your strengths, your weaknesses, uh, having a mentor in the industry, be having an ally, and most important is be an owner of your career, right? As much as being affiliated to those universities and being dependent on your program managers within the universities and your ambassador groups to promote you and land you a role, it's very, very important that you take charge of your own career. And also, yes, failures are bound to happen. That happens with everybody. All of us have been through our phases. But what we need to take out of that is, what is it that I have learned? Have I identified those gaps, and have I built on that muscle? And being very well connected in the industry, having your network is gonna set you apart. Not just the technical capabilities that you bring to the table, but definitely being aware of your surrounding and technical environment is going to be really crucial as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Soumya. Just a little bit of a housekeeping note, I guess, for our participants and the audience. As the speakers are going through the description of the topic, if you feel that there is a question you want to ask, feel free to put it in the chat window. We've currently muted the mics, but Tanya will look into those questions, and if there are any questions of which are relevant to the current topic, I mean, Tanya, feel free to kind of bring them up, and we can talk about them as we are going through the topic as well. Right? Perfect. All right. So Adrian, over to you in terms of, what do you see? What is the gap, in terms of the current market and the tech market? Where do you see the gap as such? Is the curriculum sufficient? Are there enough opportunities? Are there right kind of opportunities? What in your mind, where do you see the gap?
Obviously, the curriculum would not be sufficient because, as you would know, things in the tech world changes so fast. And for anyone that will graduate with a degree in computer science, that's a 3 to 4 years program. And whatever curriculum that he or she is going through was set for 3 to 4 years ago, based on 2017 curriculum. So when it graduated in 2020, all the things have changed. There are new computer languages, there's new ways of doing things. So all this will definitely have an impact on them. But having said that, I guess the good thing about a market like in Singapore is we do have more supply of jobs. compared to the supply of talents out there. So people who graduated from the right discipline will still get an opportunity. So that's one thing. And second of all, of course, for people who may want to make a switch into this discipline, like what was mentioned earlier on, trying to put things into practice is a good thing. And that's the merit of a skill set like computer engineering, because you can actually put it into practice. It's like if you are into digital marketing, you can actually just go ahead and put together a website. You can actually help someone to do SEO, and this will become your portfolio. Versus, let's say you graduate and you want to be a people manager. Where do you go? You can't put up your hand and say, I will do a free intern as long as you let me manage people. It doesn't work that way. So getting this portfolio out is very important. If you need to do this for free for a while so that you can just clock up your portfolio, by all means, go ahead. You can definitely reach out to VWO, charities. They all need help. They all have crappy websites. They all have crappy infrastructure system. Definitely there's some aspect of the skill set that might be relevant to them, and they'll readily accept you in, since they don't have to fork out any money, or even if they do, just a bit of money, and that will allow everyone to come into a win-win situation.
Perfect. Perfect. I mean, doing things for free, taking on volunteer work, I think helping out where you can, I think that is absolutely the right way to go, right?
That's right.
Perfect. Anybody else like to add on?
Right. So from my point of view, yes, you cannot be 100% up to the market, because see, for example, I'll take a simple example. If there is an application, or if there is a software which is released and the student is working on that, or a programming language which is released and a student is working on that, and there'll always be a one version ahead which is there, which is being worked in the company, and you will be able to access the current version of it. So it is similar to the course materials as well. So you won't be able to get to the 100% of it. You can only access the current version of it. And considering the university point of view, you will always be 2 years behind compared to the current trends, because the mixing and the bringing in new technologies, and also you need to enable teachers to teach that as well, right? So there'll always be that gap of 1 or 2 years on the latest technologies. But again, there are different ways we can address these issues. For example, one of the point is smart grids. The companies like smart grids have their access to the latest technologies, which will help students to learn these technologies apart from their regular syllabus, right?
Absolutely. I think as many opportunities that you can find, getting your hands dirty, I think getting into the work, I think that is the key, right? So in terms of, I guess maybe Soumya, this one is for you. Uh, like when we see the current market, I think the cloud market is very hot right now. And I think the other domains that are within the tech space, I mean, there are so many spaces where I think the same talent is getting poached by many, many organizations. And especially when we look at, websites like HackerRank, etc., you see that they are mainly looking for people who are 2+ years of experience. So what is that? How does somebody kind of get that 2 years of experience if companies are not willing to take a chance on you? So there are companies who are chasing after the same pool, and there is a pool that is ready to be become part of the bigger pool. So how does somebody kind of bridge that 0 to 2 year gap and start actively participating in industry?
Yeah, and that's a good point you brought up, Nitin. Well, just to reemphasize there, now gone are those days where tech degrees alone were sufficient and suffice to land your role, right? While that universities do provide the right level of foundations, but the pace at which technology is changing, and it is so rapid that it's very difficult for university to keep up with this, right? Just throwing some numbers in there, 95% of the curriculum at the university level takes about 2 years to change. Versus if you look at the technology landscape in the industry today, it pretty much has been changing quarterly to monthly to annually, right? So now what one can do is definitely look at, so skill being one and upskill being the other, right? So while the universities do provide the foundation, it's extremely important that the students out there, they take a third party skill company, look for skills, that's new in the industry, in the market, try to get a grasp of that, find free access to the content, right? Just to give you some example there, Microsoft launched a global skills initiative this year in midst of pandemic, right? And the whole intent was to bring about digital skills to over 25 million people globally by end of the year. And there are tons of free content, certifications that's available out there. So the aim basically was to bring together every part of our company, combining the existing and the new resources from LinkedIn to GitHub and Microsoft, and using data to identify those demands. What are those jobs who are highly in demand? What are those skill gaps? And it has so much of learning path and content available for free and low cost certifications. And I really encourage all the students out there to sort of go through it and leverage from this, because upskilling is definitely an area one should invest, and you need to be on a learning journey. It should never stop. So I would really invest. If I am someone graduating, I would really want to invest time in learning and upskilling myself and building that network.
Perfect. Thank you. Anybody else like to add on?
I will just add on a bit on the short courses. I think there are a lot of short courses available online, and I'll encourage everyone to tap into all these courses to have that accelerated way of topping up your skills level and keeping yourself updated on trends in the various industries.
Right.
Just to give you an example, I just finished a very short course on the latest developments of IoT technology. So we're looking at what's the latest development. So even people like us who are organizing startups, we are also in the process of learning what's out there in the market. So students and people who want to create startups should also be in that constant learning mode. And the best way to hitch a ride on that will be to take up all these online courses. And that lasts a few hours. I think there are very good opportunities for you to learn new things.
Perfect. Perfect. George, let me actually continue with you on the next question as well. So we with Soumya, we got a little bit of a perspective of Microsoft as a large company, trying to help students out with a lot of free content. And how do smaller companies engage? How do startups basically find means to engage and attract talent? What advice do you have for them? How can they help in their role of creating internships and opportunities for students?
I think startups, to start off with, they have less resources, so they need to be very nimble. They need to be very sensitive to their environment. It's like a deer. Even though they are small, they can always survive in a wild safari. They don't always get caught. So the same thing applies to startups. They are very focused on quick traction. That means if you have a quick product, you have an initial product, you must quickly achieve quick traction with it. And hence you are very sensitive to what works and what does not work. What are functions, what are functionalities, what's the value that customers are looking for. So for founders, I would say focus very much on presently where the crises are, okay? Because where there's crisis, there's an opportunity. And you realize that certain products, certain technology, which in the last 12 months were not in demand, suddenly found themselves in hot demand by employers. So I just give you an example. We have a company that's in breathing devices. So they have been thinking of having hospitals as their clients. And suddenly, because of the COVID-19 crisis, they realized that their first major customer is not the hospitals, but airports, because airports are bringing in tourists, there are trickle flow of visitors. And if we want to aim for full-scale opening up of our airports, the first thing we need is breathing devices that can quickly do the swab tests for visitors and people who are leaving Singapore. So they were very sensitive to that demand, and they quickly were able to talk to the airports, and they got their first contract via that route. So this is a very good example for us to know that startups, even though they are small, they must always be on the lookout for crises, because once there's a crisis, there's a demand. So
There you
that's
go.
the first thing about advice.
Perfect. Perfect. In fact, it's a very interesting mix, right? I mean, sometimes when we look at interns getting hired by startups, they are not exactly interns in them. They get in there and they are basically asked to do day-to-day jobs, or they're basically just thrown into the fire. But when you're kind of working for as an intern in a large company, sometimes you are given a little bit of rope, if you will. There's a little bit of support. There's a little bit of different setups. I mean, there is a complete difference in the learning style in both of them. There's a little bit of a structure maybe in a large company, whereas in the small company, there is a lot of hands-on. Which of those two methods, I mean, would you, kind of think of? And I mean, there's two very different styles, and from a
I see.
student's perspective, where do you see them benefiting more?
Okay, in my situation, I always encourage my startups, if you are taking on an intern, always to put them on the front line, give them a real problem to solve. Okay. And because their availability is so limited, they're only available for 3 months. So the best thing is to tap on their expertise within that very short period and get them to solve a problem for you. Okay. And for big organizations, well, we have taken on some interns for specific tasks. But I think if you want to be able to learn something and acquire the expertise, I think a startup is still the best platform for them to do that.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Perfect. Anybody like to add on? I think Tanya, you have some questions that we've got online as well, right? Would you like to maybe read them out?
Just one actually to the point that Soumya made about our tech companies looking for talented students that didn't go to university, and our micro credentials the way forward. So that's something that Natasha Barfield has put on the chat. So if anybody wants to take that.
So, sorry, can you repeat the question once again, Tanya?
Yeah. The question is, are tech companies looking for talented students that didn't go to university at all? And are micro credentials the way forward?
That's a brilliant question, and I'm glad it was asked. Well, yes, micro credentials are definitely the way forward. Having said that, our organization's encouraging students not to go to universities. Definitely, that's not the case, right? So it has to be a right balance in terms of your natural skills and versus how universities can implement to sort of add on to that. That being said, a lot of organizations, including Microsoft, a lot of startups. Now we are looking for tech capabilities and how agile you are as an individual and the value add that you bring to the organization, right? So we should also be very clear in our head in terms of having right expectations ahead of time, right? And not every undergrad will have the technical capabilities. So it's extremely critical for you to go through a formal channel mode of education to develop on those skills. And that's what organizations like Google, Microsoft, couple of startups, we all encourage that. And it's definitely important for you to stand out. So if you are in an internship program, it's definitely a key to play to your strengths and make it visible to the organizations in terms of what you bring to the table. So it's going to be a balance of both. So it's not, I cannot say yes and no, it has to be a right balance of both.
Thanks, Soumya.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that.
Natasha. Over to you, Nitin.
All right. Any more questions, Tanya?
Not at this point. Maybe
All right. Perfect. Yeah, let's keep going on. So essentially, I think when we look at the Singapore setup, I think when we've looked at NUS, we've looked at SUTD, a few of the colleges over here, a lot of them actually have, I think, more internships than students. they actually end up in a situation where sometimes there are, a lot of opportunities for the students as such. And it may not be the perfect choice that the student is really going after or whatever, but they still have a choice of at least between internships. Sometimes for the larger pool, that I think the way that we have it in India right now, students struggle because there are too many students sometimes, and there aren't that many internships being created. So there is a massive movement towards things like remote internships, virtual internships, other opportunities, etc. What do we feel about those kind of opportunities? How do corporates view such kind of alternate mechanisms of internships that are getting created now? Anybody would like to take that?
Right. So I'll take that, Nitin. So
Thanks, Sachin.
if you take India scene, right, and uh, all the students have to go through internship, right, and that's a mandate from AICT. And in that perspective, the other side of the opportunity is there are not many internship opportunities available from industry, right, from the companies. So there is a gap. Absolutely, you will not be able to contain all the, let's say, about from computer science background, we will have approximately 1 lakh students, let's say, passing out, and you can't have 1 lakh students in being intern at certain companies. And that's definitely a gap which we will have. And the opportunities of remote internship and co-internship with corporates and then startups are the way forward, right? And that's how you can enable all the students with latest technologies of these IT industry companies and what they want to teach students. And that's how students should get along, right? So you won't be, as I mentioned, not 100% of students will get internship in IT industry because there are not so many openings in that sense. So remote internship is one of the way forward which smart interns are doing currently. I've seen so many of my fellow institutions who are working with smart interns and are very satisfied with the experience they get with the platform, with the latest technologies and all this stuff. Instead of having nothing, it's always best to get exposed to the latest technologies which these companies offer and get experience around that.
Perfect.
Am I audible?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
my
perfect. Yeah,
voice
perfect.
clear?
Okay. Yeah, we got you.
I
Thank
think
you.
there is some issue with my internet. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's maybe shift gears a bit. Now, how do we actually bring a bit of diversity, right? I mean, we've always been going after a similar pool of talent, right? I mean, now we've got different demographics which are opening up. We've got different people, different geographies which are opening up. We've got women in tech. We've got differently able people coming into tech. So what else do we see as a pattern? What can the corporates do so that there is more opportunities getting created, not only for such students, but also for the differently abled and for people who haven't been that well represented in tech in the past? So I don't know, Soumya, if you'd like to maybe take that one.
Yeah, sure. Well, anybody talking about diversity and especially diversity in tech, it's so close to to my heart, and I can go, have a day-long conversation about it. But what is really critical is understanding what diversity means to each one of us, right? Everybody comes from a different background, be culturally, from an education, race, different understanding, different perspective, right? So what does it mean? So the bottom line of it is understanding what it means, which is having that mutual respect and appreciating what makes us different. And we could be different in terms of age, gender, ethnicity, education background, nationality. And what is also extremely critical for organizations to realize that diversity, we need to get past the hurdle of viewing diversity as a matrix, right? It's not just putting those percentages and numbers, it's much more than that. And what we fail to recognize that it's a journey, it's not something we can achieve overnight, right? So it has to become a part of culture of the organization. It has to be a mindset shift. And it is more importantly, you cannot be diverse and not inclusive. So both goes hand in hand. Now for organizations and the workforce, it's very important that we set those opportunities on the table for everybody. We have the right access in place, and that goes for everybody. And the policies, technology cannot develop without having the right HR capabilities to back them up, right? So having those right policies in place is extremely going to be critical. Now, talking specifically from a hiring standpoint, what we really need to invest time and energy is looking for people from different backgrounds. So diversifying your talent pool is going to be the key. And when I say diversifying, not just looking for those key technical words on a profile, or looking for the key educational background, but is that resource willing to learn? Are we looking for reasons to hire versus not, right? Are we looking to ramp them up versus looking for readiness? And also, it's extremely critical for organizations to invest in early in career talent, the students, the interns, promoting them, making them go through a robust training programs, right? And also being their ally. It's extremely critical. So as much as the students would seek mentorship, it's extremely critical for organizations and someone from those organizational groups to be an ally and promoting that culture, right? So it's a mix of everything, not just from a technical background, but a mindset, from a readiness to a screening in, and from a different community background. And promoting
Perfect.
that as a part of your culture as a company is extremely critical as well.
Right. I mean, I think personally, I think it shouldn't even be a point of discussion, right? At some point of time, it's just that we have to find ways to get everybody skilled and everybody talented enough that we should just give them all those opportunities. And I think that is where opening up more opportunities, maybe for internships and being engaged as part of the solution. I think then corporates necessarily wouldn't, they would just go for the skill, right? That's what matters. I mean, it doesn't matter where it's coming from, and you would not necessarily have to even differentiate in that sense. If everybody is able to get the right skill, then there's nobody then who is differently abled or has less access to
Exactly.
resources in that sense.
Exactly. As long as you're being agile, as long as you have the growth mindset, where you want to move away from know it all to learn it all,
Right.
as long as that's in place, rest is something we can ramp you up on for sure.
Perfect. So I think we've got about 15 minutes to go. So we're gonna just go quickly through a few other points. I think there was one topic that was very close to, I think, my heart. And I think, George, you were very passionate about the idea of project experience, right? So I'm just curious. I mean, when we look at the entire spectrum of the learning process, there is a learning aspect where you're kind of going through training. There's a certain aspect of it where you kind of get hands-on and start doing projects, and there's basically actually doing the job. How do we see that mix of learning? How does learning actually happen in your mind?
Um, that's a very good question. I think over here, we always try to pair the interns with an experienced worker in the company in order to do the gradual um, onboarding process. You say onboarding process in a company. But I think most of the time, interns who get assigned to a startup will find itself being uh, thrown on the deep end of the pool to start learning, okay, to apply their knowledge. But my experience is that the collaborations we have so far, in as far as interns are concerned, the partners are both very proactive in preparing and educating the interns. So the interns actually understand. Firstly, they have very good skill set. Okay, They have a very positive attitude. And once they are deployed to a particular task, they're able to apply themselves with great diligence. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's my experience so far. Yeah.
So definitely, I mean, there's like super focus on hands-on, on being project ready and just
Yes, we do
getting your
understand.
hands dirty as much as possible, right?
Yeah, we do understand certain areas they won't be as refined, as polished as a trained corporate worker. But I think um, that's where the partnership between the incubator and the employer comes in, where they work together on the orientating the intern and preparing them for the task. Yeah.
Super good. All right, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Adrian, just a question for you on trends, right? I mean, I just trying to understand, where do you see the trends going right now with the future of work, remote working, or remote internships, and what can both the companies and the students do to basically get ready for some of those trends that you see?
I think at the individual level, in fact, also for the company, if we were to pay close attention to some of the study, for example, if you look at World Economic Forum, they have actually released a study on the kind of skill sets that will be required today, 10 years later, 5 years later. Those are good telltale signs to help us better understand what is needed. So for example, 10, 20 years ago, the must-have skill set would be obedience, able to take instruction. But in today's context, that is not really necessary. I wouldn't say unnecessary, but there are something else which are more significant: creativity, adaptability. And if we look at how companies are getting their people to work from home, you don't have a trial run. You don't have good onboarding to teach you how to work effectively from home, because your home is different from mine. People would just have to adapt as best as they can. So all these kind of skill sets would be really, really important, all these soft skills. And these are the things that individuals as well as companies should pay a larger attention to. Because if you look at hard skills, yes, you do require certain hard skills. But end of the day, you can get someone with the best hard skills. But if they are extremely annoying, they're tough to work with, you wouldn't be able to reap the benefit that you aim for. And on the employer end, I think trying to guide people into the right skill sets, that will be quite critical. And in today's context, you have digital tools, you have platforms that can help you easily map out the skill sets of the entire organization, of your individuals, as well as to show to them the line of sight of on what are the lacking skill sets that they have right now, and propose where can you acquire these skill sets, through podcasts, through events, through talking to someone internal, find a mentor. So there are literally many different ways for companies to prepare their people for this. But I think foundationally, they have to start by recognizing that all these skill sets, all this combination of skill sets, as well as what you are able to deliver, is much more significant than 10 years of working experience, 5 years of working experience, an MBA from this particular school, which honestly, if you think about it in today's world, doesn't really mean anything anymore. So as much as studies and academic qualification will still be important, I think there has to be a balance as we move towards a more skills-based economy.
Right. No, absolutely. Completely agree. And I think those are the mindsets that I think students need to adopt. And I think it's just that aspect which will help you stand out more than the pedigree and more than your qualification, I guess, in that sense. Perfect. I think, Tanya, we have a few questions on the chat, right?
Yeah, yeah. So one of them is, does a degree that has work integrated learning stand out more than a degree that doesn't? And are companies aware of which universities are leading the way in work integrated learning? So anyone would like to take that?
So
See, I
basically a degree which comes in with automatic work integration.
right. So I see that question as experience learning process, right? I see that question as are companies looking at institutions or universities who give more experience learning with regard to the IT industry, and are companies aware about which are these universities? For that, it is yes and no answer for me, because see, you will not be able to list down all the universities who give experienced learning, right? And but there are universities who does this kind of blended learning portfolios for students. uh, Again, it depends on the relationship which university maintains, and there are tier 1 institutions or tier 1 universities which will always make a cut in terms of getting known to the university, to the companies, making sure the students experience and learn the latest technologies, so that hiring happens with pretty quickly from those universities. But again, there are universities which are coming up with these blended experience model of learning, and which will come, right? And it is, for me, it is yes and no. Companies do know about certain universities which are of tier 1. For the rest of the universities, there are individual interest about the from the companies to hire from.
Absolutely. I mean, until the universities don't start offering this, I don't think students need to stop, right? I mean, there are options available today.
Right.
I think we spoke about a lot of those options, including, I think, currently our platform, Smart Interns, where I think students have option of coming in, really finding a lot of supplements and getting add-on advantage. I mean, they definitely have no shortage of choices today, I think. I think the problem might have become it is too many choices. And I think students are struggling, I think, with that, with the problem of plenty, maybe more than that. And that is where maybe sometimes when it is part of a course curriculum, you don't really have to take a lot of those decisions yourself. And you've got somebody who's looking at it, who's basically curating that content and who's giving it to you in a slightly more planned manner. And then, as a student, I think you're also um, not 100% equipped to take all these decisions at this stage. And that is where I think maybe it's definitely a challenging time to be a student in these times. So fully understand where you guys are coming from, and it's definitely challenging. I mean, we see choices, we see too many choices, and we want to definitely try and see ways which are more aligned to helping you get to where you want to be, right? So I think that is my own personal guide stone. What is it that gets you to your endpoint? I mean, basically work back from your result, right? Anyway, so I guess that's broadly the questions that we had. I'm just one more question. I think, George, I just wanted to ask you. I mean, and this is actually open to all of us. Which sectors specifically do you guys see today? Like, there are so many opportunities that are coming up in health tech, in in education tech, and fintech. What do you see? I mean, the next 5-10 years, which technology, which sector? How can we help students get a little bit of perspective as to where do we see the future? What should they really take a plunge on today that maybe will help them find opportunities when they are done with the course?
Yeah, thanks, Nitin. I think from my experience, we have been discussing this among our colleagues, which are the areas that we should really push the startups into, and where we should channel our resources. I think first thing, things where minimizes the human involvement while maximizing business performances. So automatically you look at robotics, look at artificial intelligence, okay, where machines can learn from human behavior, okay, and optimize business performance of business processes, okay. So AI, robotics, and last but not least, definitely medical tech. I will also encourage AR and VR, especially in education, pedagogy, right? Pedagogical solutions, because I don't see ourselves going back to the physical classroom so fast. And even if one day the pandemic goes away and we do return to physical classrooms, we have already developed a reliance and an understanding of using technology to teach and to learn. So I think AR and VR is also another important area for us. So this is just my personal views.
So we have a platform that I think that's future learning is going to be built upon.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Adrian, would you like to add on any other areas that you see as opportunities?
I would second what was mentioned. I think in the space of AI automation, this is something that a lot of companies have jumped into. Essentially looking at ways to replace, augment, improve the repetitive task that has traditionally been done by human beings. I think that is a fantastic area to really look into. And of course, if you look at the technology sphere, if you get to just read about the new developments through Product Hunt, CB Insights, you can see technology space across different spectrums are really evolving at a very fast pace. But at the same time, maybe you could also look into the hidden opportunities. And what I mean is, say for example, in today's context, everybody would love to work for Facebook. Everyone would love to work for Amazon. But having said that, it's going to
And
be very tough.
Microsoft.
And Microsoft, yes, and Microsoft, of course. I should say Microsoft first. Everyone want to get into these companies, but it's going to be very challenging. And unless you somehow able to get ahead in the queue, another way to look at it is which are the companies that are enabling Microsoft. So say, for instance, if you look at Facebook, Facebook has this platform which require massive amount of server load. Who is providing them with this server farm? Who is providing them with these cloud services? That would be a company that is growing as well. When we look at the fantastic sales of iPhone, which are the suppliers that get to benefit? The chip manufacturer that manufacture and put their chip into all these iPhone. The company Gorilla that actually created the lens for the camera. So all these are actually opportunities that you can identify as well, which may not be that obvious for people from the get-go. But I think end of the day, you have to decide, do you want to work in, do you want to compete and be a big fish in a small pond, or you want to be just one of the small fishes in the entire ocean? So different school of thoughts, but something for interns to think about.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. So I think we are almost up on our time. I just wanted to take 1 minute, I think, to ask Sachin. I think, Sachin, you've had some experience working with smart interns, and we've covered a lot of ground here in terms of the problems, right, of how students have issues around getting to project-based learning, how they have issues getting to the right amount of internship, how they have to really find ways of getting into the new and emerging tech. And how has your experience been in terms of, with smart interns and with other platforms of that nature
Sure.
in so
See,
far?
I've worked with numerous edtech companies in last 8 to 10 years time period, right? And edtech is coming off in a great edge in recent years, and we have seen companies like Byju's and Unacademy coming in trying different things in different ways, right? So I work with smart interns, and it's an amazing platform, right? So I'd like to start off with the process of learning, right? If any student wants to learn any specific platform, right, it's about, first thing is they need to be aware about what is that programming language or the technology they want to get into. And then once they have the awareness towards the technology, they need to have access to that. That's the second step. Once they have access to that, they need to use it. If they have opportunity to use it, they may not be aware about how to use it, right? There comes a point of mentor, right? Someone has to help them to learn this technology so that they can start using it. Once they do it, they have to develop an application, they have to develop an some kind of project around that using that platform, right, and that technology. And once they develop it, you can try it out in different platforms like hackathon, in different forums like hackathon, or webinars in different ways. So there is a step-by-step process for a learning, right? And whenever a new technology comes in, it's about awareness, getting to know about it, accessing it, and taking a help from someone to learn this, and then trying it out yourself by building a project, and then going on trying it out in a hackathon kind of an forum, right? So all these steps are covered in smart interns. So that's the best thing, right? I mean, you at times what happens is you will not have awareness. If even if you have awareness, you'll not have access to technology. If you have access to technology, you won't have someone who can guide you to how to learn this or how to use this. So that's the very best part of smart interns. There are mentors, there are capable technical guys who will help student to get onto these technologies. And there is a beautiful platform called smart interns, where students can track their application development process, right? So when you go to a IT industry, where you will see different models of application development life cycle, right? There is waterfall model, there is agile development application. So everything starts from requirement gathering and then goes on to implementation and testing, right? So all these steps are can be tracked through smart interns platform, and each of these steps can be reviewed and mentored by enabled technical guys, right? So it's a best way someone can learn latest technologies and enable themselves, and at the end of it they can try themselves in a hackathon, and which will again there'll be corporates who will come and look at these talents. There may be opportunities with regard to the internship and job opportunities as well. I mean, depends on the situation, the kind of workshop and then kind of internship which they are taking. But as I see, this is the best platform which I see a student can get onto and learn the latest technologies with the help of mentors.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I think that's about the time that we have for today. Any last words from anybody before we close?
I mean, thanks for the opportunity from my end.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking time out. Thank you, Soumya. Thank you, George. Thank you,
Thank
My
Sachin.
you.
pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. And thank you, Tanya, for pulling this together. Thank you
Yeah.
to all the team
Thank
members
you.
who kind of came, and really appreciate all your time and effort. Thank you so
So
much.
much.
Wish you
Thank
all the
you.
best, everyone.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye bye.
Yeah. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Take care.